Hey y'all, welcome back to the Coyote Trapping School Podcast, episode number 27. It's back, just me today. I hope y'all enjoyed the recent episodes that I've done with the interviews. Man, I had a lot of fun. I said this before, I had a lot of fun doing that and look forward to doing more of that. I just, getting other trappers' perspectives and other people's perspectives always helps, to me, just kind of unlocking new ideas and new things and new thoughts. And that's, man, I can't stress that enough as trappers and as outdoorsmen. You know, we've got to be, you can't get so set in your ways that you think you've got it all, you know it all. There's always something more you can learn from somebody. And you know, that's the thing that I like about trapping, the challenge is there's always something more. You know, that those animals, you can always learn from the animals. And so that's one of the things I wanted to kind of jump into today a little bit more. I was going to real quick read a podcast, a review on iTunes. I've got 62 5-star ratings, so thank y'all so much for going and leaving this feedback. And you know, that helps that helps in the algorithms with you know, where the show gets placed. The more ratings, reviews, and activities and downloads, it helps with where the show gets placed, and hopefully helps find more people. Helps more people to find the show. So thank you for that. If you haven't, and it's providing some good value to you, please go and leave a review in iTunes and give me an honest rating. If you think I need some stuff to improve on, let me have it, because I'm going to make this thing better. But I think everything's working so far. I'm flirting this month with January with 4,000 downloads for the month total, which is pretty awesome. You know, it's been a steady growth ever since I started the podcast, so I like that. I'm hoping we keep it that way. It'll probably tail off a little bit this summer, maybe. Hopefully y'all are some diehards and you're going to hang with me. But this one review, 5 stars. The title is "Keep It Up," and the number, I don't know how these. There's a couple of these that are just numbers and letters, kind of weird. But this one's C1D08C6288. So if you know who you are, I appreciate it. It says, "Thank you for an awesome podcast. It is the only one I can find on iTunes based in the Southeast. Hearing about the northern guys and gals are good, but it's a whole new ballgame when we cross the Mason-Dixon line. Keep up the good work." I appreciate that. And, you know, that's definitely something that I've seen with trapping videos in the past. And it's gotten a little, well, I say it's gotten a little better. There's a lot more people that are putting out in the last 5 to 10 years. There have been a lot more people putting out videos. And with that, sometimes the quality is not spectacular. But you know, getting more perspectives, because, you know, in certain parts of the country, in the Midwest and the Northeast, and pretty much everywhere but the Southeast, you know, there's still a decent kind of viable fur market where you can cover your expenses, you know, and it makes kind of monetary sense, I guess, to be trapping. In the Southeast, year in, year out, that's really not the case. There are some exceptions. Probably the biggest one is folks that are trapping for the live market. So if you're trapping for the live market and you've got a good consistent buyer, which has been the struggle that I've had run into in the past, and you know, that's an outlet that you can consistently be trapping and making some money. Otherwise, I mean, unless somebody's paying you to do it, you're not. You're probably covering some gas money and stuff, and that's, I mean, that's I don't do it to make money. You know, people don't go deer hunting to make money, or, you know, people fill their freezer through deer hunting. But you know, a lot of times, if you really look at it, you could be a lot more efficient and effective buying beef at the store, or than deer hunting by the time you start doing leases and your rifles and all that. But anyway, to me, it's so much more than, you know, if there's no fur market, you know, just trying to do the things that I do, you know, trying to get creative with how you can use your fur and use a resource that we have. I don't know, it's just another little extra challenge that I enjoy. And I just, man, I don't know how else to say it other than it just gets in your blood, and it gets to be, man, that's what I think about, and that's what makes my noodle turn pretty regular. It's kind of crazy how often I find myself trying to think of how I'm gonna catch something, or noticing when I'm out somewhere else, just, the first thing I'll notice is a beaver chewed stick or something, something that, probably 95% of people that go by never notice that, and just little things like that I pride myself in that a little bit, because that's one thing too that I like about trapping. I think one thing that intrigues me so much about trapping is, the sense of the woodsmanship that you need to really to be able to read sign, and to start learning those animals' behaviors and anticipate what they're going to do. I mean, that's a $50. You got to get that sucker out of all that area to step on a $50, and that's not easy. If you tried it, it's not easy, but it's doable, and that's I don't know. That's the exciting thing. It's just the thrill of the chase, and the satisfaction of knowing that you won that one. That coyote could have went anywhere, and all the odds are stacked against you as the trapper, but you pulled it off, and you got him to step right where you needed him to. So, anyway, a little tangent, but I guess that kind of leads in a little bit to one thing that I was going to talk about today. And I've listened to a couple of Clint Locklear's podcasts on Trapping Radio, and my only gripe, and I talked with Jeremiah Wood about it a little bit, that that I think that may be part of Clint's his marketing is kind of limiting where his information is. I'm sure he could be reaching a lot more people and having a lot more downloads if he put his podcasts in iTunes. But you got to go to his website and listen to it through his website, and I've done that, and it aggravates me every time. It just the inconvenience, I guess, is, and that's kind of I feel bad to say that. I feel like a millennial talking, I guess, but it's good stuff. It's good stuff. One really awesome podcast that I really enjoyed. I actually listened to it twice. Was with Tom Miranda, and I don't know if how many of y'all are familiar with Tom Miranda, but Tom Miranda actually started out as a trapper, and he started out as just a trapper trapping in high school, and wound up moving to Michigan and trapping on his own, and then wound up taking a government trapping job in South Dakota. Bought a plane with his fur money, but also developed a line of baits and lures, and I think he was the first one to produce a trapping video series, and I excuse me. I got to know Tom Miranda through watching his Advantage Adventures on ESPN when I would get home from school, and watching Tom Miranda on that, and I didn't realize initially that he got his start as a trapper. So I remember one episode when I realized it, he was sitting in an antelope blind reading, I think it was an old Charlie Dobbins book about trapping and modifications of foothold traps or something. I don't know, just some B-roll. But I was like, man. And then I got to realizing, and Tom Miranda was a big name trapper, and really was on top of the game, and he had an opportunity to go into hunting more so than trapping, but his goal and his mindset was to educate people about what we do as outdoorsmen, not just trappers, not just hunters, but as outdoorsmen, and providing for our families, and reaching, going on these adventures, and trying to use that platform to reach people and promote our conservation lifestyle, really. And so just hearing Tom's story, it really, I don't know, that intrigued me a lot. Knowing a little bit of the background, a little bit of the history on Tom Miranda, and knowing that he was, he started out as a trapper, it's kind of makes me think of also of, Stephen Ornella with the Meat Eater. He talks about starting off things as a trapper, and that just really intrigued me. The two guys and very prominent in the hunting industry and the outdoor industry, got their start as trappers. So that's pretty neat to me. But anyway, that was just a really neat podcast. It was neat hearing Tom talk about working through and working with his career in the outdoor industry, and how he grew that. So that was just real neat. But I was also listening to one with Clint and Jeff Dunlap, and they were talking about locations, and really learning the critters that you're catching and you're after, and knowing them more than just location setting, like what a lot of times we wind up doing. I do here in the southeast. We rarely get snow. If I'm trapping fields and things like that, cow pastures, I'm just guessing as to where I think for the most part those coyotes are going to be running based on terrain features and just my knowledge of how what has worked for me in the past and where I found sign in the past and how those coyotes use edges and fingers and pinch points and things like that. But Clint even got to talking about coyotes in Tennessee and how they'll tend to shy away from the bottoms and running in the valleys, because that's where in the wintertime that's where all the cold air goes and sits, and so they'll tend to stay on the ridges and things like that. And just I think that's definitely one area for me to really learn, and I've tried that. I've done that a little bit this year with being more intentional about setting on sign. So I've gotten in a pretty just a habit of really trying to pick out locations, and I look and watch for sign. I'm always looking and watching for sign, but sometimes that's honestly kind of secondary. And it reinforces if I pick a location and there's a coyote track, well then that reinforces it. But a couple of the coyotes that I've caught this year so far have are in areas where I didn't set. I set some of the same. I'm setting some of the same farms that I did last year, and one coyote in particular I caught in a totally different. I never set in a finger that creek bottom that's open, obviously fairly open because the cows run in there. But I was actually looking for otter sign in there along the creek, and I saw a coyote track, fresh coyote track in the sand. I said, well, there's kind of a cow trail, and I think I can use some of these trees to kind of avoid the cows from getting into my set. And bam, caught a coyote in there. And I've set up a couple other spots like that. It's taken more time because I'm not just I admit, world's worst, I do not like the idea of walking a trap line or walking in to check traps or set traps. I like pull up to an intersection, get out of the truck, grab my bag, and walk 10 feet this way and 10 feet this way and be ready to go. So being a little intentional and getting out and walking some areas along the creeks and drains and areas where you can see sign, where you can see tracks, and I think, and I'm still feeling it out and working it out, so I don't have it all down. But I think even though it's taken more time to kind of validate and look for sign and kind of figure out find actual sign, I think in the long term that's going to help me to I'm going to be more efficient and I'm going to be more successful with my catches because I'm trying to put the trap more where that animal's traveling, knowing where he's traveling versus just guessing that he's running through this intersection. So I don't know, that's like I said, that's something that I heard them talking about, Clinton and Jeff Dunlap traps up north, and he Michigan or Minnesota, maybe Wisconsin, I don't know, one of those way up north states. But just that really intrigued me and thinking about that because I've been started looking at, that was terrible language, but I started looking at that this year, just trying to kind of get a little bit more familiar, especially in areas that I've known already, that I came in and I trapped last year. Looking at some of the spots where I didn't set any traps, I didn't look before, and just trying to overall get more efficient and effective with my sets. And that goes for all kinds of critters. That's just, I think that just takes it one step further. Like I was saying earlier, that's one of the things that really intrigues me and that I enjoy about trapping is using my woodsmanship skills and honing those and getting more proficient and efficient at reading sign and anticipating. So I don't know. I hope that's not just rambling. I hope that's something that's useful to you and valuable to you, because I definitely think it is. I think that's I was looking on Instagram earlier at a picture of a coyote somebody caught out in the Nebraska or somewhere, sand hills just wide open, mountains in the background, wide open prairie, and I was kind of thinking to myself, how they pick that? You can see a road or anything. They were probably close to a road, but just you know, that's such a different scenario than I'm used to, and that's something long roundabout rambling way of saying that's something that I want to improve on myself is knowing the game better, I guess, knowing the habits and I even thought about I'm too lazy to do it honestly, but I even thought about like kind of printing off a topo map of some of the areas where I'm trapping, and anywhere I do see sign, make a little note, make a little X or something, tracks, whatever direction, and just try to look at that, after trapping season when I've got several things filled out there, just looking at it and trying to kind of see, is this coyote cutting across this, kind of saddle, not a saddle anywhere else, but down here, a big cattle pasture with a just a little dip in the middle. Are they crossing right through across that dip, or are they hooking the wood line on the outside? And there's so many variables that come into play with that, right? Because you got not only got terrain and distance, but then in a cow pasture you've also got the donkeys. So maybe the coyote would go through that little dip, but because of the donkeys, he's going to hug the tree line and go around the fence line. So anyway, like I said, that's a long roundabout way of saying I think that's somewhere that I want to work on. I've been working through my work and just kind of my personal stuff with Coyote Trapping School and all with the new year, and just trying to set some goals and some targets of things that I want to do to improve myself, and that's one of them is knowing a lot of it around coyotes, and I'm even looking hard at doing either doing Mark June's Predator Trapping Academy or Mark Zager's Coyote U. I think the one thing that I took away from listening to Clint Locklear and Tom Miranda, their interviews, both of those guys, very prominent, top of their game trappers. And one thing that both of them put as a priority was taking lessons, going to somebody else that knew more than them and learning from them. And there's a couple of schools of thought on that. You can forego those lessons and kind of learn the school of hard knocks and do it learn it on your own. You're still gonna get there, presumably, if you stick with it, but it's gonna take time. Or you go to somebody that's got the experience, and you're basically buying their experience, right? You're buying they're trading that time for money, and instead of taking me 10 years to get better at trapping coyotes, I'm gonna go and pay this man that consistently catches 100 coyotes a year. He's got something figured out, and I want to figure that out too. So just another something I'm thinking about seriously trying to put into play. Like I said, to kind of to up my game some. That's the one thing that, man, I know that I don't catch every coyote that comes by, and I don't think we ever will. But I want to catch more than what I'm catching now. I want to be more effective. So anyway, this is kind of a tangent episode, so just roll with it. I hope that's what I'm doing. But that's like I said, just getting into goals and thoughts and priorities. That's something, overall I want to become a better trapper, and exposing myself to better trappers is what's going to help me to get there, right? And so hopefully I don't want it to come across to anybody as I'm just trying to shortcut things and so let me know your thoughts on that. One of the things that kind of intrigues me that I've kind of noticed. I just did a video. I was walking down a little creek bottom. It's the head of a pond, a beaver trap last year, and I always, anytime this time of year, I'm always looking for otter sign when I'm going through walking creek banks, walking pond banks and stuff like that. And the water was down, and I just happened to catch a glimpse of just one little pile of otter scat right there in the dried leaves, and I couldn't help but think to myself, like, how many people would have walked right by that? I don't even know why I noticed that, picked that up. It's just that the mindset and the things that as a trapper we look for with tracks and things like that. Just a little gray pile of scales and bones that blended into the ground just perfect. But again, just knowing, learning more about those, all the fur bearers. I really want to get better at catching coyotes, but I guess that's a lifelong quest for us trappers, right? Is to get consistently better at knowing and knowing all the game that we pursue. So anyway, enough on that tangent. I feel like I've kind of beat that horse to death, but I would like for you to consider, because I'm the world's worst about pushing that. We're setting locations, and look for intersections, look for edges, look for creek bottoms, whatever, and set those. And that's a great way to get started. But beyond getting started, I don't even know what the word I'm trying to say is, but progressing, I guess, as a trapper, and getting beyond that to not just assuming, but knowing those habits, and I think is the next level. All right, I feel like I've repeated myself 18 times on that. Then I was going to hit on a couple of questions that I've been getting lately. One of them's about toe catches, and I've gotten several messages and emails and stuff asking about, pictures of a coyote with, not a full pad catch, but, a toe catch or something, and, what am I doing wrong? What could I do differently? And man, I mentioned this on my daily Trapline video, but that's not a concern to me. If I've got that coyote in the trap, that's all I'm worried about. I don't care if I caught him by the tail, by the hind leg, by the front leg, by the right foot, by the left foot. If I got him, I've mission accomplished, And I say that kind of tongue in cheek because I do, it does cross my mind when you catch a coyote by the back leg. Well, was he leaving? What the heck? But I don't bog myself down in that. I don't put a lot of thought in that. And there are some things that you can do if you're consistently getting toe catches. You can try to increase your pay attention a little bit. But I don't know that you can ever totally mitigate that out. I'm anxious to try. I've saved a couple of the front legs off a couple of the coyotes I've caught, and it may be after season, but I wanted to try kind of testing it, and I don't know how exactly I'll do it, but taking one of those coyote legs with the feet on it and just setting a trap and pressing, putting that foot on, where just maybe the toenail, the toes or the toenails catch the pan and fire that trap, and just see, what kind of catch does that result in? Because, even with increasing your pan tension, if that coyote's not standing fully on the pan, I don't know that you're guaranteed to get a full pad catch. Just because you're not. I'm just going to say it. You're not guaranteed to get a full pad catch just because you increase your pay attention. There's so many variables, and this is purely my opinion, thinking in my mind here. There's so many variables of how that coyote can come in and how that coyote can step and stand and fire that trap that my advice is don't let that worry you. If you're catching coyotes, roll with it. I mean, if you catch 25 and every one of them's a toe catch, you might kind of want to think about, then it might be worth questioning whether you should maybe try to increase your pay attention a little bit. My problem with increasing pay attention is I don't want to miss any catches, and with gray foxes in my area be my main concern. Those little light-footed suckers, I mean, they can avoid traps easy enough as it is. I don't like the idea of cranking up my pay attention and possibly missing gray foxes. So I went through all my MB550s before the season, and checked them to make sure they were running 2.5 to 3 pounds of tension, and I've been very, very happy with them so far this year. So that's my I guess my takeaway is if you're making catches and you're kind of questioning, should I be offsetting the trap or whatever, as long as you're catching that coyote, don't overthink it. Roll with it. Keep doing what you're doing. And if it gets to be a pattern, or you have a pull out or something like that, or a couple pull outs, I would say, then you might think about it. But don't make something a problem that's not a problem. And one of the best examples I can give is bobcats. Man, I can't think of the number of bobcats that I've caught with a full pad catch. I mean, it seems like every bobcat I pull up on, that's the first thing I look at, especially on bobcats, is how well he's caught. Man, 90% of the time at least probably it's by them toes. And I don't know if it's just they're so light-footed or what, but I'm not doing anything different. I'm still catching them. I'm catching grays and I'm catching coyotes. So that bobcats, I would say, is especially one that don't second guess yourself or worry. If you're making toe catches on bobcats, I'd roll with it. And unless maybe I haven't seen some of the guys out west that trap and target cats, they use big traps and they'll use big pans and exposed pans, and that I could see where that would allow you, having a big exposed pan would allow you to that pan would hopefully look like the prime spot for that cat to put his foot, and result in a full pad catch. So but like I said, otherwise, overall, if you're making catches, don't overthink it. Roll with it and keep doing what you're doing. Another question I just got asked was, what do I do with my fur? So with the kind of the hecticness and a little bit of laziness on my part, probably, typically the way I skin and in the evening, I just put all my fur in the freezer until I get a break, which usually doesn't come till after season goes out. And I just roll it up, one hide per bag, and put them in an ice bag, or put them in a Walmart bag, or put them in a bread bag, and put them in the freezer. And I don't have a particular special way that I roll them, nose to tail, tail to nose. I know there's all kinds of debates and ideas and theories on that. The one that makes sense to me the most is rolling from the tail to the nose, because then you can take the nose and hook it on a hook, and as it thaws, it's gonna straighten out. But I never wind up doing that. I'd throw them in the freezer any way I could get them, and then throw them in a cooler for a couple days, and as I'm thawing and checking them and fleshing them, and just do that. So I'm not a very big systems or processes. I'm kind of a shoot from the hip. Let's do this and roll, and not overthink it, as you probably figured out. But that's what I do. But the biggest thing is make sure you're not putting two hides in the same bag, or putting multiple hides on top of each other that haven't froze solid. So that's definitely something that it takes a while for that. Obviously that fur is insulative, and you put a couple of those furs together, and that inside is going to take a long time to freeze, and you could wind up getting bad spots, rot spots on your hides if you do that. So that's the only watch out I would say there is. I try to keep the flesh side in as much as possible. But one thing I've noticed with the pressure washer, using the pressure washer like I do, and even if that hide's got a little bit of freezer burn on it, you hit it with that pressure washer, and it just kind of, you never know it washes that freezer burn spot out. I don't exactly know what it does or how it does, but I guess rehydrates, I guess, is what it ultimately does to that pelt. But I've never had any issue, knock on wood, and I'm not the world's best fur handler by any means, but if you're regular knife fleshing, I would say that would be probably a priority, is trying to minimize any of that skin side, flesh side that is available, just to keep it from there. So make sure you fold that over on top of each other and wrap it up good, so you won't get any freezer burn. And then lastly, freeze proofing sets. So that's not something we have to deal with a whole lot down here in the South. But it's kind of fitting, because tonight we got a 1/4 inch of rain today, and it's supposed to get down in the high 20s tonight. And so that's definitely something that comes up from time to time, and you'll run into throughout the season. So there's a couple of things that I'll do for that, and well, there's one thing really that I've ever done for it. I did when I went to Ohio. I got some exposure to using Trapline antifreeze, just flake antifreeze, and so I've been wanting to experiment with it a little bit more. But honestly, it doesn't get cold enough to need that down here for the most part. Typically, what I'll do is I'll keep some peat moss. If it's going to get cold, I'll have a tote of peat moss with me. And so as I'm bedding or resetting traps, I'll take and dig my bed out, and then I'll just grab a handful of peat moss and throw it in the bottom of the bed. And my thought there is, I'm trying to keep the ground, any moisture that's in the ground itself, from freezing to that trap and holding it open. So if I throw a handful or two of peat moss in there, that kind of creates a barrier, which hopefully will keep the ground from freezing to my trap. And then I'll put my trap in there, try to get it bedded solidly. Then I'm going to sift some dirt over top of it, and I always do that, and then take my hands and just kind of press down everywhere outside of on top of the pans. I'll put them just like this with the pan in the hole and just press down all the way around, trying to make sure that trap's bedded solid. And I may or may not, I may throw a handful of peat moss on the trap before I sift the dirt. And then, after I throw that on, I'll probably throw another layer of peat moss on, and then sift another layer of dirt a little bit over the top of that peat moss, just because that peat moss doesn't pack. And so trying to get something that's more uniform and recognizable on the surface than the peat moss. I haven't used peat moss that much in recent years, and haven't really had any issues with refusals that I know of because of the peat moss. But I kind of like to finish it up with a little bit of dirt on top, just kind of blend things in naturally. And then also, the upside to using the hay covering is you really don't have to worry about that. You don't have to worry about sifting over, covering your trap with dirt and that dirt crusting over. Now, you still have to worry. You could potentially have your trap freezing to the ground, and it's a lot more likely that could happen, because you're setting that trap in the dirt and hammering around that trap to get it locked in solid. So with that case, as what I'm hoping to get some traps out tomorrow, and probably what I will do is once I get my bed set, again, throw a handful of peat moss down in the bottom of that bed, then bed my trap solid, then cover with the hay. And I mean, if you haven't tried that, you need to, because it's just really easy, especially with as much weather and rain as we've been getting. It'll amaze you, I think, at the success you'll have with that. Otherwise, if you're not in the South and you do actually have a little bit more freezing temperatures, you can get this flake antifreeze or Trapline antifreeze from any trap and supply dealer, and it's super simple to use. I use it, like I said, when I was trapping in Ohio, and the way we used it up there was dig out the bed, sprinkle a little bit in the bed once you get it dug out. Put your trap in there, and then you can layer it in as you're sifting dirt. If you wanted to sprinkle a little bit more over your trap, and then put some dirt in, and then sprinkle a little bit on top. It's kind of, in my opinion, very limited use. Is kind of the easiest way to do is sprinkle it under your trap, bed your trap, and then sprinkle it over your trap, and it'll actually melt into the ground. And so you don't have it looks weird because you'll have these white things laying on top of the ground, but it'll actually melt into the ground and it won't be visible there. And then you might give a little extra shake around your levers, just to make sure, because that's where your power's coming from. So you for sure don't want them freezing down. And all it is some kind of salt solution, right? And so it's going to melt down into the ground and kind of make that hopefully give enough salt in that dirt mixture to keep it from freezing. The one thing, especially with using that antifreeze, is it's salt, so it's corrosive to your traps. So that's where it's important to have some good type of covering on, whether you're waxing your traps or dipping them or whatever. I've never used it, but I would think you would want more than just a Boilman logwood dye with that. So I think they're going to start to rust if you just got logwood dye on your traps, and you're using that flake antifreeze or Trapline antifreeze. So I think that's really where wax would come in good. Or I like my coating with the speed dip. Honestly, I've had good luck with that, and I think even Full Metal Jacket. I don't think it's going to hold, which none of them really hold up after one catch, but that's definitely something to keep in mind, because you want to protect your traps, and you're already putting them in a harsh environment, and then putting salt right on the metal too. So definitely something to keep in mind there. But anyway, that's all that I had. Just a few notes that I wanted to cover and hit on. I know these last few podcasts have been a little bit longer. The interview podcast, which has worked out good, I think. I've gotten good feedback about those longer interviews and longer content in general, whether it's my daily trapline running or what have you. So speaking of which, if you're not aware, I'm running my trapline every day on YouTube, and depending on how busy the day is, I'll have more or less footage. But if I make catches, I show the catches, remakes, and just kind of life on the trap line. So today I didn't have anything but a possum. Won't be an exciting video today, but I try to show it like it is, and show what what I'm catching, and kind of how I'm doing, giving you a little insight into my trap line. If I make catches like coyotes or bobcats, foxes, I'll put what I use for bait and lure. Not that should drive you to anything specifically. That's just what works for me. That's one thing that I get asked on a regular basis. What do you use for bait and lure? And man, it's any of them are going to be good. You buy bait and lure from any of the bigger trap and supply dealers, or man, there's a lot of local folks that are starting to make bait and lures. I'm testing one now for a guy here in North Georgia, and had really good luck with it. I've been very impressed with it. So just get something and try it. I would lean towards buying a bait and lure from somebody, though, versus using deer meat or gut piles or something. I mean, I think that's going to go a long way in helping you make more catches and be consistent with catches. But anyway, be sure to follow along the trap line, and like I said, I hope. I only did it last year and this year, but I've always got good feedback. And now through the end of the season, I'm going to try to get a new property set up tomorrow, maybe. But now through the end of the season, I'm going to try to lay with it right up until February 28th. So we'll hope to keep things going. I've had a pretty good run so far. Today was the slowest day I've had catch-wise in over a week now. I've been knocking out 2 catches a day at least. And last Friday, I had 2 coyotes and a beaver. Pretty good run. And so another question I get asked sometimes is how many traps are you running? How many traps do you typically run? And with running traps before and after work and skinning and all, I found around 24, 25 to 30 traps is really plenty to keep you busy, keep me busy. On days that you don't catch anything, you feel like you got a little bit of time that you could be doing something else. You maybe should be setting more traps, but then you catch 2 or 3 or 4 things, have a really good day on the trap line. You're like, man, I got now I got a couple hours in the skinning shed, and not to mention resetting, remaking your sets. And so that's something, that's kind of the way that I've approached this whole thing is, man, I'm no professional trapper. I'm no long liner. I'm a regular guy that's working a day job and trying to trap on the side, trying to have my family and balance all this. And it gets kind of out of whack during trapping season. And I know that I've got to pay for it before and after season, with making it up and making sure I spend time even during the season, with my wife and my son. So definitely, I mean, they're what it's all about. Trapping's not worth ruining anything with them. I want to be with them as much as I can and fulfill my duties as a husband and a father. But definitely, I think it's good. I've listened to Gritty Bowman and some other guys talking about, men specifically having having a purpose and having an outlet, I guess. You know, a lot of the guys out west that do their backcountry hunts and their backpacking hunts, you know, and having that challenge and putting yourself. I mean, man, really, I'm gonna wind up going off on this a little bit, but I think this will be good because you think about it. I mean, as a a lot of folks nowadays, and they don't really have any challenges. You go to work, I mean, your biggest challenge is deciding where you're going to eat on Friday night, right? And man, I don't know. That's got to be unfulfilling for folks. I feel like it would be for me. You know, there's something more to be doing, to be trying to test yourself, to be pushing yourself, and you know, some people definitely find that in their work and kind of dive into that, but I don't know. I think having a hobby, having a trapline, having an outlet where, you know, that's, you know, something that your mind can think of besides work. You know, I think that's good. And I just listening to some other folks talk about, you know, having hardships, and it kind of made me think. I saw an ad today for one of the Savage races, and, you know, a bunch of guys climbing cargo nets and stuff, and it got, I mean, that's exactly what I thought about. You know, is that the reason those adventure races and things have been such a big hit is because, you know, there's not a lot of a challenge, you know, like physically or you know, kind of almost like a primal challenge in the world. There's not a lot that we have to worry about. We don't have to worry so much anymore about you know, a bear mauling us and eating us while we're out trying to gather our food. But for us hunters and trappers, you know, that's part of our identity is tapping into and staying in touch with kind of our ancestral ways of living, of living from the land and living off the land. And man, I don't know, I feel like that's just that's good for us, and not sure really where I was going with that, but one thing that made me think of is you know, kind of talking about that and realizing how fortunate we are and how blessed we are, just to be trappers and to do what we do and to expose our families to this stuff. I was doing a nuisance job the other day, catching roof rats of all things, at a pretty nice house uptown, and the lady's grandchildren came out while I was packing up to leave, and she asked if I'd caught anything. I said, yeah, I caught a couple. I was kind of trying to lay low and be discreet. You never know how folks are going to take things, and I don't want to go broadcasting that I'm trapping rats at this, you know, their house. So, but the ladies, like I said, she had her daughter and her grandkids there, and her daughter's like, well, do you have them? A couple of grandsons there, and I was, yeah, right here. And man, I was just really blown away at how fascinated those kids were with the rats that I'd caught, right? They were asking how I caught them, how they died, what I did with them, and I was wishing that I had a beaver or a coyote or something else in the truck to show them, you know, because that would have just absolutely blown their minds. But man, it really showed me how disconnected. I mean, especially with doing you know, Facebook and YouTube and Instagram and putting out as much trapping related content as I'm doing. You know, there's plenty of haters and plenty of people that don't understand why we do what we do. But it just really concreted the disconnect of I don't even know the circle of life, I guess. I mean, these kids were pumped up about seeing a dead rat. But you know, that I also say that to say that we've got such an interesting platform. I don't know if platform is the right word, but you know, we talk about recruitment and getting more trappers involved and getting more people in hunting and things, and man, that's something that kids are naturally interested in and drawn to. You know, you throw out a couple of hides on a table, and every kid in the county is going to come by and rub his hands through them. You know, but we've got to utilize that. You know, and I'm kind of rambling here because I don't really know where I'm going with it, but we've got an awesome opportunity. We've got access to resources and things that really intrigue kids and that kids are really interested in, but we're not reaching out enough and trying to inform and educate those kids. Because, man, those same 7 and 8 year old boys in 10 years are going to be chasing 17 and 18 year old girls that are going to think that probably if they've never seen a dead rat, they probably don't think highly of people that kill coyotes and sell their furs. And if we can tap into that and educate those kids, why are we doing what we're doing right now? When they're younger, we have a better chance of winning them to the cause. Maybe they don't become trappers necessarily, but at least they know. So I guess I'm saying that as a conviction for myself of, most of our schools, our local schools have FFA chapters and things like that. And I actually did that when I was in college as one of my projects. I went and did kind of a trapping outreach program to an FFA classroom, and I think I bored most of the kids to death, but definitely I would go about it differently now. But man, firing off a trap in the classroom, having animal skins, and we've got to be better about that if we want to keep this tradition that we have. I've seen two notifications in the past today, really, of potential trapping bans in California and New Mexico, I believe. And I mean, that's all it goes off to, and it kind of gets back to what my conversation with Jeff Trainer about the uneducated people, and they see. They just see the problem seems to be that I think a lot of folks' problem with trapping, the same with hunting, is it bothers people that we enjoy it. I mean, just being blunt, it bothers people that we seem to enjoy killing. And let's not sugarcoat it. I mean, we do, right? I love, to an extent, I guess. I mean, I like catching the coyotes. I don't know I don't know what purpose it would serve if we just trapped them to let them go. But I mean, just even from the hunting side, there's a huge rush when you call in a coyote or something like that. And I think that's what doesn't sit well with people, is that we enjoy the pursuit. We enjoy catching. We're getting satisfaction out of catching that animal, seeing that animal in the trap that we set. And trying to portray that to folks in a way other than in kind of a, not necessarily other than, but in kind of a conservation mindset, and using those numbers. Because I mean, what it boils down to with trapping is there's some areas where animals are going to have to be removed. Whether it's like Jeff was talking about in Massachusetts with the beaver situation, and used to be trappers would catch the beavers and keep the beavers under control, no trapping, and now all of a sudden people are having to pay to have the beavers removed, and the issues that causes, and there's most folks aren't aware of the different federal programs and the USDA Wildlife Services and things like that. Guys that it's their job day in and day out to handle those human wildlife interactions, and by handle I mean kill. That's what those guys do, and they do it well. And that's something that costs folks money, and for the most part, those. Don't say for the most part. I mean, that wildlife is not getting used, and to me, that's a disservice when trappers have the opportunity to take, catch those coyotes, beavers, whatever, and utilize that fur for, making something with, turning something into. I guess that's what people don't realize is, those animals are going to be killed one way or the other, whether it's me and you as trappers or whether that's the government as trappers. But with me and you, it's not our job necessarily. We're doing it because we enjoy it, and with the government, that's their job. Those guys enjoy it. At least that's why they got into it. Most of them was because they enjoy it. But that's their job. So I guess in some people's mind, there's no morality issue there. Those guys are doing it because it's their job. They're not getting their kicks off of it, which I can assure you they are. Like I said, you don't get into a job shooting coyotes from a helicopter and not because you didn't want to. Anyway, I don't know how y'all take my tangents. I kind of got off on that tangent and don't really know where I was going with it, other than to say we've got, and I'm saying for myself too, we've got to do better at promoting what we're doing and why we're doing it, and highlighting those issues of where it's not just I guess those issues, those areas where it's gotten to the point of it's no longer a decision of should trappers be doing this, but this has got to happen. These animals have to be killed. These animals have to be removed. And the positive benefits of that. Sea turtles is a big one that jumps out to my mind. Sea turtles on the Georgia barrier islands and a lot of the barrier islands. Those areas have had or do have programs in place targeting hogs and raccoons primarily from nest predation. And they're out there doing what they can while those sea turtles are nesting to try to make sure that an endangered species has an opportunity to live and to not be endangered. And I've kind of gone back and forth on that, because that's, in a sense, that's giving an animals a hierarchy. That means it's okay to kill raccoons but not okay to kill sea turtles. But at the same time, that's not me making that decision. That's biologists and making a decision of this animal's fixing to be wiped off the face of the earth. So are we okay with that, or do we want to do what we can do to ensure that it doesn't? And in that respect, I don't think that's a moral argument or whatever. That's just the fact of the matter. And I don't think any of us want to see animals, losing any species when it boils down to it. People don't, again, that's one thing that people don't understand about trappers. They think we're just out to kill everything and we want everything dead. Well, heck no, man. I want to catch stuff for the next 80 years, I sure don't want to catch everything. At least not till then. But I don't know. There's tons of rambling that can go there. But give me some thoughts on what we can do. What I can do to better kind of reach out to those younger folks, because it's, even if it's not getting them involved in trapping, but just trying to open the dialogue to somebody to say there's more to it than just killing. Because we've got to do that. We've got to do a better job of that. All right, that's enough. I've rambled on for almost an hour, but I hope y'all enjoyed. Back to just me, and didn't get too bored with my droning on, and hope you're having a good, as I usually say, hope you're having a good trapping season, and we'll buckle down and brace for the cold tonight, and keep the traps rolling, and y'all hang after it. If I leave you with anything, it's patience. Have patience. Right when you think you're discouraged and you want to pull your sets and move your sets and rebait and relure and everything, that's right when your sets are getting good. So just when you get that urge and you're getting down and disappointed about not catching anything, be ready, because that's when your catches are going to start happening. So have patience. You got good sets, leave them out, leave them working, and you're going to make good catches, and it's going to pump you up, and you're going to be really excited about setting some new traps and leaving them and catching more stuff. So anyway, hope y'all are catching tons of stuff. Hope this is helping you to catch more stuff and become a better trapper, or become a trapper. And as always, feel free to message me, and I'll do my best to try to get back to everybody in a fairly timely manner. I've been pretty successful with that. Sometimes it takes a while, but y'all have a good night.